in a roundabout way, I guess, to answer your question, that's, you're constantly evolving. Never stop evolving. Just keep innovating. I think you nodded your head when I said that word a couple times.
Yeah.
Constant innovation. Just because you did it that way doesn't mean you need to keep doing it that way. And nobody's got it figured out.
Welcome to the Media Core Minute Podcast. My name is Josh Langmaid. I am joined in the studio today, John Scepaniak. How you doing today?
Wonderful.
Wonderful. John is the Director of Aggregate and Operations at WD Scepaniak. And you guys are located where?
We're located in Holdingford, northwest of St. Cloud, about 25 minutes.
So you just say St. Cloud normally? Or?
St. Cloud. Well, because people will ask genuinely, where are you guys from? I'm like, Holdingford. And their eyes just go dark. And you can't blame them. Yeah. I mean, it's a
I've
town.
Never heard of that.
It's a town of 700 people.
Okay.
It's where my dad was born and raised. It's where actually my grandpa was born and raised. Just adjacent to where our headquarters is. Yeah.
Really?
Yep. So there's actually quite a bit of family lineage in the area. Just throughout my searching cemetery records and things like that.
Yep.
I was kind of on a genealogy kick a couple of years ago, trying to find out who I am, where am I from. It happened when I became a dad.
Okay.
Because I was like, okay, what, trying to paint this family tree, what it looked like, and the who's who and the what's. And
so in your garage, you just had the big family tree.
You would be surprised, okay? And this it's all math, but when you just step it back, you have obviously mom and dad make the kid, but then each of them have a mom and dad, and it just goes and it spreads. And if you track back to 10 generations, it's just an insane amount of people.
Yeah.
And it's like, how do you even illustrate it and organize it on anything less than a wall? Like on Criminal Minds or whatever, where they're got the picture here and drawing the lines with everybody.
The lines going everywhere.
So, anyways, yep,
that's great.
So Holdingford, that's where we're from. It's where we rebuilt our headquarters in 2006 in town, and for us, really, as being a regional contractor, really doesn't matter where the home base is.
Yep.
Because we're working everywhere.
You're all over the place. Yeah. So going back a little bit here, I think I'm trying to think back to when we haven't really met in person. Actually, this is the first time meeting in person.
Yeah,
but it didn't feel like.
I feel like I've known you for years.
I know.
Yeah.
The same thing, and I go back to the power of social media. I mean, I feel like I knew him, and I was thinking this morning. I don't think we've actually met, but
you forget stuff like that because I've talked to you for probably the better part of a year.
Yep.
That's
because I think I reached out way back on. Probably, I don't know.
I was trying to reflect on that. Did you find me or did I find you? How did that happen?
I think I reached out to you.
Okay.
Just in search of, businesses that we would potentially work with, and I think I ran across you, and then I saw that you did that video project and the FPV drone. I reached out and I said, hey, just quick introduction. If you need something, love to chat more about it. And then we kind of got on the drones, and I think because your buddy.
Yeah.
Came down and did those, and then we were talking about that, and I think I followed you on social media, and then it quieted down for a bit, and then you started posting all this stuff about yourself, like the different lifting.
What a narcissist, right?
But it was fun because I'm like, because I didn't know what kind of guy you were from our, I think we had a quick conversation maybe, or just over email, and I start seeing these posts, and the dude's like, powerlifting. I'm like, what?
Oh.
What? Who is this guy?
Very, very mid-level hobbyist powerlift. I powerlift like most people fish. It's something to get out of the house, I guess.
Have you ever competed in that?
No,
just for fun then.
Yeah, it's just competitive powerlifting. I don't know. Well, I got the competitive stuff out of my system with wrestling and jiu-jitsu, and I never really felt it. How do I say it? So with combative sports like wrestling and jiu-jitsu, you can't really quantify it. It's like who's better in that moment at that time. Whereas with something like lifting, you have your numbers. Granted, there's variation and nuance to the time, date, and setting, and how do you do if you're competing at your normal time in your routine in your normal gym versus in some unknown venue, and they're doing
people watching you.
Yeah, and it's you're 45 minutes between your lifts, and how do you do there? But Yeah, I'm not writing it off, but it's
Yeah.
just something that, with what I do for a living, I cannot adhere to necessarily a consistent or dialed enough protocol to be set to peak at this certain date. Which really, for what it's worth, strength is strength. You're probably within 75 to 80% of your peak strength at any given day of the week.
Yep.
I would like to think, and
Yep.
that's what really kind of got me into conjugate programming and the West Side Barbell, and that whole thesis was their philosophy on being, ready to peak within
Whatever,
3-4 weeks, and I really liked that. Amongst a whole bunch of other things that they do that really drew me to the philosophies there.
And were you a lifter all your life?
So it was more. So let's think about this. I started lifting in probably like the 5th or 6th grade, just with my older brother Josh. He was playing high school at the time, or high school football at the time, and those guys were big and strong. I wanted to be like them, and for my age, at that time, 5th and 6th grade, hit puberty early, and it was something I.
Oh, you were the kid with the beard before everybody?
Yeah. I didn't grow armpit hair till quite a bit later. I was self-conscious about that, but yeah, no, it was something that I was like, I can be good at this.
Yeah.
And was always, bigger and stronger than most people, and just kind of took it and ran with it. Really liked it, and everybody
It's
wants.
addicting.
Yeah, I mean, it's
Lifting
something.
heavy weights and seeing your numbers go up is a blast.
I just remember the first time I benched 135. So like after I would lift, and this is 5th and 6th grade.
Still getting there.
Yeah, it takes time. I remember my grandma Rosemary. She came and picked me up in her 2001 Cadillac DeVille after I was done, and how was your exercising, Johnny? And I said, Grandma, I hit 135. I was like pumped. She's like,
That's awesome.
That's nice, just like the most sincere grandmotherly way. And yeah, it's funny how you remember stuff like that, but that's kind of how it started.
That's great.
Yeah, and just kind of been into it ever since, because like I said, it's either been primary focus or an accessory to what I was doing. I mean, I was doing football, wrestling, track, construction. Football, wrestling, track, construction.
What did you do in track?
Threw shot and disc, and I ran the 4x8, and then did mile and 2 mile. Because you got to remember, I wrestled.
Okay, yeah.
So I was crazy.
Yeah.
So like I would come off of wrestling season, and I'd be 180 to
Light.
200 pounds in that area, and but a killer gas tank.
100%.
So like we would show up to the track meet,
Interesting.
get off the bus, get the warm up going. It was me and the 3 other people doing the 4x8. So it was me, and then 3 other guys that you put them together. They were about the same size as me, and we'd run this 4x8, and then I would go do my throws, and then I would close the meet out doing like the 4x4.
Yep.
And it was like just versatile. I wasn't
You're
quite
just
a.
stacking the
I
points
can't
for the
jump,
team.
so I couldn't be a decathlete, but I could be what would you call it, a quadat? You know what I mean? I could do 4 events, pretty good.
Ollie did too.
Yeah, shot and disc.
Yep.
Throwing is that could be its own sport,
It was
separate from track and field.
I love it. What was your record shot?
I was pretty dusty at
Oh, yeah?
shot. I mean, I was probably low 40s.
Yeah.
you
I
know.
think mine was either 53 or 54.
Yep.
And I missed state by 1 spot.
Really,
I was pissed.
that's tough.
And I didn't have a coach though.
Really?
So there's coaches. There's probably 4 track coaches that all do different things, but there wasn't anybody that had thrown or knew how to throw. So it was like, watch these videos. And then it was all self-taught. And I think I started in 9th grade. And I've always been a big dude. But it was fun because it was like, I could do well at it. And I remember 9th grade kind of learning how to do it. 10th, I'm getting better. I think 10th grade, I'm throwing better than the seniors were. And after that, I was like, oh, sweet, I can just lift and throw heavy weights around. And, I'm still pretty quick for my size. Because you got to have the speed still. And the funniest part about it was track practice. You have to run a half-mile warm-up. For me, at 300 and some pounds in high school, that would kill me. Every time I finished that, I'm just dogging it. Everyone else is like, well, I'm a runner. Like, this is nothing. And then we do sprint drills after that. And everybody's doing this. And the throwers were too. And like, we're just dead. But I was just like, yeah, that's how we start every practice was half mile, sprint drills, and then everyone breaks up and you train your events. And I remember going into 11th grade and going, Coach, I'm putting up, I'm getting first, second, or third every meet, putting up a lot of points for the team here, and I'm not doing warm-ups anymore. I can't do it. Like I'll go lift and then I'll come out here and I'll practice. And he's like, well, that's all right, fine. And none of the other throwers got to do that. So there's still, 8 to 10 big dudes, running on track that weren't putting up the numbers that I was. So they had to go do their thing. So I would be up on the hill because our track was down here and our shot area was up here. So I'm warming up, throwing, just getting the wrists ready and stuff. And I'd see them running around doing their half mile. I'd be waving, I'd be getting the bird back. And
just chilling.
They'd be so mad after.
But let's be honest, a blanket approach to a warm-up for something as versatile as track and field is really goofy.
Yep.
But in high school, as a high school coach, it's like herding cats.
100%.
You got to just...
Did everyone here do this? And
yeah, they need order amongst the chaos.
Absolutely.
Well, that's good. That
was kind of fun. That was my fun track.
It's your first taste of salary leveraging. Look at what I'm bringing to the table.
That's right.
Okay, look what I'm doing for you. We got to work something out. That's cool.
I mean, you can't ask that if you're sucking. It's like, well,
yeah, that's true.
No, you get out there.
You got to know where you stand in the organization. Yeah, that's for sure.
So before we get way too off track here, what do you guys call it WDS much on your shirt? And your hat.
So in terms of marketability, so that was another thing that Beneke elaborated on. The marketing change, and so we're formally established as WD Scepaniak Incorporated, abbreviated as WM D Scepaniak Incorporated.
Yep.
And when you're doing invoicing with anybody, that's how you got to work through it. I can't find you in the system. WM D Scepaniak Inc. And that's what Grandpa had painted on the side of the dump truck.
Yep.
And that's what we're rolling with. That's what people know us as in the industry. Scepaniak, WDS.
Was the logo like the Facebook logo? Was that the original one?
So is that the
big angry guy?
That originated on a bowling shirt in the late 70s or 80s, and we actually have it in a display case in our lobby.
Love it.
And that was something that my dad and my two uncles had, kind of on their trucks, and it kind of went away for a couple of years. And as I was got out of school and was thinking about branding and marketing and kind of having this identity crisis on who we are and how do we push and market, I was like, well, let's just rely on Old Faithful. Sometimes the solution is right there in front of you. And it turns out that thing is very well received.
Yeah.
It seems people like it, just
absolutely.
it's cool. It's one of those things that's like I don't even know who designed it or what. I probably trademark it before or whatever, before it gets carried away, but it's cool.
I saw it today. I'm like, yeah, it's pretty cool.
Isn't that neat?
It's fun to have like an icon, that can still represent something.
Yep. Because
other than just your logo or your WD.
Right. And I think too, I've had illustrators in the past go through and just kind of make I don't know what you call it, art boards, things like that, just with variations of the name and the logos and stuff. And I like that, being able to be versatile for T-shirts and stuff like that. It's cool.
Yep. So, what do you do at WDS? What is WDS?
So, the company right now, we're a national leader in sand and gravel production. You could look at us broad spectrum if you had to classify us. We are an aggregate services contractor. Aggregate, for the unbeknownst term, is utilized for construction materials. Aggregate, so your rock, sand, gravel, crushed stone, right?
It's used on every site, pretty much.
Pretty much. So any asphalt, any concrete, any gravel roadway, pretty much any of those products or their derivatives originate as a natural resource in a mine or a pit, and that's what we go in and produce. Big picture. That's what it is.
I like it.
Aggregates.
Yeah. And who started that?
So when you look back at our timeline, my grandfather, William D. Scepaniak, the namesake of the company, started it pre-World War II.
Really?
He was doing livestock trucking and things like that, hauling cattle to like Chicago, and with that looked at different ways to be more versatile. Bought a dump truck and started hauling gravel and started doing road maintenance, and then he started bidding on contracts for like ditch digging.
Wow.
Had at the time it was like a dragline style machine that would dig ditches. Went and served in World War II, came back and kind of doubled down on what he had left, picked the business right back up where he left, and it was the early 60s when he bought his first rock crusher. So technology at the time was quite a bit different. We do volumes in a week that he did in years or his career, really.
That's crazy.
But at the time, that was what he had to work with. So he bought an old Pitmaster, it was called at the time, and they bought another one, and then they really just kind of ran the business up until his passing in '79. It was himself, and then he had his three sons involved, William Jr., Robert, and my dad, Joe.
Okay.
And the age gap on those guys is like 10 to 12 years, I think, the
Really?
spread. So at the time that my grandpa passed in '79, my dad was a couple of weeks away from graduating high school, so he was 18, and Bill was late 20s, and then
Yep.
Robert was somewhere in the middle. So the three boys, and then my grandmother Rosemary at the helm. They took the company and ran it steadily into the early 2000s. From there,
And was there kind of like a choice with your dad and his brothers, like, hey, you can kind of do whatever, or like, hey, like family business, we need you, kind of thing?
it's interesting because it probably depends on who you ask.
Yeah.
Family businesses and generational transitions, there's a lot of emotion, spoken and unspoken, that go into those, and I really don't know. I think if you had to ask my dad at the time, he was 18 years old. Who knows what they want to do
Right.
at 18, even in 1979, right? The kids had grown up in the business. I think that was option A through Z.
Yep.
And especially you implement the fact of your father passing unexpectedly. It changes the dynamics, because then you're implicating legacy and honor and things
You
like
got to pick
that.
up the reins. Yeah.
It's there's some interesting dynamics at play. So really, that's a good question.
Yeah.
Probably a better question for my dad and,
Yeah.
and my uncles, but. But after that, bringing it back to the early 2000s, Robert left the company. There was a buyout agreement. There was just, three people on the steering wheel trying to steer the car in three different directions, for lack of a better analogy. And so from the early 2000s, shortly into that, Bill's oldest son, Tony, came on board. And then shortly after, his second son, Jake. And then that was right around the time my oldest brother, Josh, was Jake's age.
Yep.
He passed away in a snowmobiling accident. And then that really changed the dynamics of things, because my dad's first son,
Absolutely.
his successor, all of a sudden things changed.
Yeah.
And it was a very, very weird time from when that happened in 2006 to probably 2010. That was when I was in high school, and
Yep.
it was just very interesting seeing the dynamics of the business play out, and kind of went into this weird survival mode. And you bring in external factors, like the economic situations of the world at the time, and how that all played into things. And it's very interesting. I think at the time I saw it through my own eyes, but if you could really turn back time and watch that again, I think it'd be very, very.
Yeah, I mean, what was it like for you though, growing up? And I mean, did you, even in high school, were you working for the family business? And,
Yeah, this is the only job I've ever had.
Yeah.
Because there was pressure, like, why would you go help Best Buy? Why don't you help the family company? Not in a bad way, but it's like, hey, it's one for all for one here. And I enjoyed it. I helped probably a lot, like a lot of people in their family business. You start out taking out the trash and sorting this and that,
Yeah.
and I remember one of my first jobs was picking up cigarette butts and zip ties in the parking lot. And then one summer, one of my first jobs was to cut and spray all the thistles along the roadway. Got that done, and then they just decided to mow it, which was kind of a bummer. But that's how it started, just helping out the company in the summer. And once I got to an age where I could actually be a little bit more of a benefit, I began running equipment and learning the ropes of that stuff. So it's the only job I've ever had.
Was there, did you kind of know that's what you wanted to do, or was there pushback like, hey, I'm thinking about doing something different, or?
When I was growing up, my brother Josh was like destined to take the wheel. He loved it. He loved crushing rocks and heavy equipment. And
how much older was he?
He's 4 years older than me.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah. So he was like destined for it. It seemed as. It's actually weird to think about. I haven't thought about this in a long time. At the time, I was just, growing up into dinosaurs and cars. Cars have been a big thing in my life, and I never really thought about construction. I never looked at heavy equipment, like even the way like my son now as a 2-year-old is obsessed with cranes and excavators and front loaders. I just wasn't. It's weird to look back and think on that. And I remember a very key conversation I had with my dad later in my college career, because it was a time where it's like, what are you going to do? Because I was helping the company in the summer. Yeah. I was doing it, but it was never like, okay, I understand I'm getting a good grip of the inner workings of the company, so one day I can take on this role. I was just like, just making money to go spend it somewhere else.
Help and
I was kind of lost, like a lot of kids are. And I remember a specific conversation with my dad, because at the time my mom had cancer. She was going through chemo. So I remember she would get her chemo treatments on Fridays, and then Saturday, Sunday, Dad kind of had to leave the house because she was very sensitive to light and noise and everything. And so Dad would like come pick me up from my dorm, and we'd go hang out in town, go like gun shopping and stuff, and just hang out. And I remember he was asking me like, what do you want to do? What's your plan? And I was like, well, I think I'm going to go work for Caterpillar, for Ziegler at the dealership level, because I thought it'd be cool to maybe do something parallel to the company and then come back and bring outside experience.
Absolutely.
And I remember very clearly he said, if you're not interested in getting on board right away, it drastically changes the trajectory of this thing, because we need you now. We can't have you go on some 4-year sabbatical working for somebody else. He said, we need you here right now. And then that was the case at the time, because that was in 2014. The company was in a tremendous growth phase. And at that time it was, Bill and Joe were in there, really hit their stride, because after 2008 we, kind of took off like a rocket. We found new avenues of business in the Dakotas, and we were traveling more, and they were finding new contracts, new customers, and they had really grown the business. So at the time when I was in college, it was like there's a lot of loose ends that needed tying up. And
were Joe and Bill really on that outward facing, like get more customers? Or were they doing a lot of the actual work? Or
yeah, that's a very good question. So at the time, the company's always been dynamic and very lean on the management end. So if you would take a snapshot of what did 2008, 9, 10 look like, Joe, my dad at the time, he was physically running a rock crusher, and then doing all the other things on the back end.
Still doing,
and Bill too. He was, doing a lot of the contract work and as well as managing a fleet of trucks, delivering gravel, on these traveling projects throughout the area. So it's actually quite interesting when you look back on what 15 years ago versus now, just the dynamics of what a typical day looked like for the guy that owned the company. And a lot of that is attributed to growth, and a lot of that, those guys being able to be in the trenches, in the weeds per se, but then also out looking ahead. That was a huge contributor to the success of where they are today.
Do you ever talk to them about that? Like, sit down and go, looking back, did you imagine it getting to this?
I had a conversation with my dad this weekend about that, actually, because we're just in passing talking about what does the next 5-10 years look like, because You know, Bill being quite a bit older, he's this year he retired and stepped away from the business.
Okay.
You know, still advising and, you know, helping us.
So that changed ownership, or?
Yeah, so he passed on his voting and ownership shares to his sons, Jake and Tony. Yep. So right now there's 3 owners in the company: my dad and my 2 cousins. Yep. So, but to your question, you know, 5-10 years ago, knowing if he'd see himself now, what would he think?
Right.
You know, my dad's not one to be super introspective like that, or at least outwardly say, "Oh, this is what I would think." He was just like, you know, just nod his head a little bit and say, "Yeah, I'd be pretty fucking proud of myself," you know.
Yeah.
And a lot of times it just seems like that last 5-10 years it just cruised by, and here we are. It's crazy what you can accomplish in 5-10 years,
Right.
you know. And then even looking back to like where they were in the 80s, because for
Well, even for you though too, like what? I mean, you've been a part of it the whole time. Did you imagine it being to where you are now?
not really. I mean,
It's hard to picture it, you know.
it is. You like to have some outward view,
Yeah.
looking ahead, but to be honest, if it's easy to get lost in the day-to-day shuffle of what you have going on, just with managing the chaos and putting out fires. But you know, when I look back at where we were, so like in 2014 when I came out of college, my first job after college was we had more work than we had the equipment for, so we rented a rock crushing plant, put it in conjunction with one of the screeners that we owned, and you're heading out to western North Dakota and you're processing aggregates.
Yeah.
That's what you're doing. So I went out and did that, and that was kind of jumping right into the fire. I mean, I had done it before, obviously in the summers, but it was like, you're in charge. You know, I had a crash course with Tony. He stayed out with me for a couple of weeks to get me up to speed on what we needed to do for the mine site, because it was everything. It was a greenfield site, so we peeled the topsoil off and processed the aggregates, and then needed to reclaim it. So it was like a full-scale project all at once. And I was 22, and like, you know, 3 weeks ago I was getting up at 9 o'clock in the morning, you know. So it was quite a bit of a trial by fire, but
That's sometimes the best way to do it, though.
yeah, I only operate well under pressure. I'm a big procrastinator, and even like, so like I knew I had to come down here today and see you, but what do you think I was doing at midnight?
Yeah,
I was playing video games. Why? I mean,
Right.
I needed to go to sleep, get up, get my workout done, and come down here. But for some reason, I like had to put pressure on myself to get up and get out of bed this morning.
Yep.
Yeah.
Well, it's doing a podcast in general. There's a lot more planning, like hosting one, than I thought there would be. So just the whole experience of like, because to have a good podcast, you know, you kind of have to know what's going on about the other person to formulate a plan. And so I always do questions and research and stuff. And you know, even me, I'm procrastinating. I'm like, you know, we were going to do it Friday.
Yep.
So I'm like, okay, Thursday night I'll do it. Oh, I can't do it Friday, do it Monday. Oh, okay, I got the weekend to do it.
Yep.
So
Sunday night rolls around.
Sunday night, so and I actually, going back, I called you this Sunday morning. Oh, I think 7. No, not 7. 9:15 or something.
Yep.
I wake up Sunday morning. Look, lights coming in the window. I have the Echo. I'm like, Echo, what time is it? 9:17. I'm like, oh crap. I think it's Monday. I think John's rolling into the office in 15 minutes, and I'm not ready in that sense or with the questions yet. And I'm like, I'm so screwed here. Like, what the hell's I fly out of bed, and I turn on like the shower and whatever. I'm like, I'm just gonna do this. I'm gonna go over to the office and I'll figure something out. You know, I can, if anything, I'm good enough with people. I can have just a really good conversation and go through it. And I go to call you because I was just gonna see where you were at, just on your way down.
I was watching Coco Melon on my couch with the kids.
And it's calling for maybe like 2 seconds, and I end the call and I'm like, wait a second, this doesn't feel right. And I look, Sunday. I'm like, you got to be freaking kidding me. And I was like, whoo.
That's funny. I thought it was weird. And I was like, yeah, I figured he'll text if he needs
Yeah,
something.
yeah. And I was going to explain over text. I was just like, I'll just tell him.
Don't worry about it. That's
That
pretty
was
funny. That's pretty funny.
But I just, oh man, heart just dropped when I heard 9:17, and I thought it was a Monday, and I'm like, oh my goodness.
But even if it would have been Monday, I mean, that's a
Yeah.
huge part of probably your business and mine too. It's being adaptive and working on the
Right.
fly, and because that does happen.
And you have to, you just roll with the punches. You make it happen.
Yeah, I mean, you plan to meet somebody on site, and X, Y, Z occurs, and
Yeah.
the day changes. I mean, it's just
100%.
it's life.
So that was my funny Sunday morning story. But yeah, it's happened a few times though. It just
You forget what day it is,
Yeah.
because even now, this week you have a schedule, you have a layout. You're going to get in the trenches. You're going to go to sleep. You're going to wake up a few times, and all of a sudden it's Friday.
Yep.
Just
didn't restart.
that's life. That's being in business. That's the fun part, though.
It's the fun.
And that's
exciting.
to your original point about how time flies. It's really an interesting concept because I honestly I reflect back on it's what, it's been 8 or 9 years since I've been out of college. I'm like, where has the time gone? It feels like just a blink. And there's tons of stories and experiences in there, but I'm scared. I'm like, we got to pump the brakes here. I'm enjoying this. You know?
Yeah.
It's life.
I was going to ask you about college. Where'd you go to college?
So I went to St. John's University in Collegeville, which is just right outside of St. Cloud as well. So the irony
What
of the
was
whole
thought
situation.
process there?
So when I was in high school, I knew I wanted to play football and wrestle in college. Obviously, it's realistic to do it at the D3 level, and that's about it. So I really liked the MIAC conference and schools in there. The only school out of the MIAC that I really looked at was probably Whitewater, UW Whitewater, but just like the proximity to home was a little bit of a turnoff. And then I just like the MIAC had some good offerings, and it just seemed like a good fit. There's really no way to put my finger on.
Yep.
This was the thing, just like as far as school size.
Just kind of made sense.
Yeah, I just liked it. So I looked at anywhere that had a wrestling program and a football program. Essentially St. Olaf, Concordia, St. John's. And,
So did you play
Oxford.
football and wrestle through college?
Yep.
Nice.
Yeah. So I don't know how deep you want to get in the weeds, but I had a bit of a weird college football career. I went into it with different expectations, and I got out of it. And on surface level, you could call it a huge failure because I would consider myself a really good high school football player at the high school level, but that's because I was extremely physical, in shape, and intense, and liked playing football. I wasn't a student of the game. I didn't necessarily prescribe to paying attention to defensive schemes and things like that. I just liked playing football.
Yeah.
And I think I hit my ceiling pretty early. And it led me to be very frustrated for the majority of my college career because I was like, I'm not getting any playing time.
Interesting.
I kept running into roadblocks, right? And I think I didn't have the self-awareness to realize that, hey, you're not actually putting in like the time and the work that it takes to be successful at this level. I was a little bit delusional.
Yep.
I was like, what do you mean? I started for...
Like I was great.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was good in high school.
Yeah.
And why doesn't my same approach work here? I'm lifting weights and show them to practice. That's it. But it's like, no, you got to do
I'm
the
a
film.
unit.
Yeah, it's like you gotta study film. You gotta understand each week what the task is because it's a different team, and I really struggled with that throughout college, and it frustrated me because I think I was too dumb to know any better, and the coaches maybe were too nice to have that conversation with me and say, hey,
They were scared.
you suck because you won't watch film. They probably told me that numerous times, and I just wasn't listening. I was hearing what I wanted to hear. And it took me to probably a couple years ago of reflecting.
Kind of looking back.
But it's probably the best thing that ever happened to me. Because if I walked in the door and things were gravy, I would have never
We don't
had
really
to
learn from those as much, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I think it was good because I spent, all 4 years frustrated and a couple years after frustrated. And then I finally stepped back and I was like, okay, what could I have done different? Oh, yeah, I could have understood what I needed to do and done it. And I didn't. I was in my own head and thought I had the world by the balls. But wrestling was a different story. Wrestling, there's no politics, no bullshit. It's like
It's just you versus them.
yeah, pretty much. So that was I enjoyed that a lot. I really wish I could go back and live that again. I wouldn't change anything, but just to feel those feelings again, just spending hours on a charter bus driving to Chicago for the weekend to wrestle in a tournament, and I just miss that stuff. It was good. I mean, I was fortunate enough to start for 3 years. Made it to the national tournament as a junior. Nice. Just far away from being an All-American. Senior year had kind of a shit the bed at the regional tournament and lost a critical match that changed the outcome on paper. But I think that once again, there's a career and lessons from third grade up to being a 22-year-old that you can't buy that shit off a shelf.
No.
It's I don't think I'd change how anything played out. I think losing and not having much hardware to show for it is probably the best thing for me, because I can't have a really super inflated ego when you got nothing to show on the shelf. So it is what it is. A lot of good memories.
What'd you go to college for, degree wise?
Management. So I knew,
just like business management.
Yeah, because you backtrack to one of your original questions. Did I want to be in the family business?
Right.
Not per se right away, but I knew I wanted to be in business of some sort, because obviously being into cars my whole life. Fast and the Furious came out in 2001. I was in the 4th grade. I saw it and I was hooked. I was like, what? Yeah. No, nature did that on its own. But I was like, that's kind of a cool lifestyle. Cars and driving fast, and it was attractive to me.
Yep.
And
they're great movies.
Yeah. So I mean, that was my obsession into high school, and I started going with one of my friends to the Cars and Coffee down at that Chanhassen Autoplex, and I remember just seeing like all these cars, and you just talk to some of these guys as a dumb 15-year-old kid. Oh, what do you do for a living? And they tell you, oh, I own XYZ. So then I started to put 2 and 2 together. It's like, oh, you want cars like this? You should own a business. Okay. And then that's where I was like, I want to be in business of some sort. I like the idea of it. I like the competitive aspect of it. And then that's really where I went. So I went to St. John's to get a business degree. At the time, I think it was just called management or something like that.
Yeah.
Then they changed it midway through and gave it some global business leadership sticker. And so I did that. I came in with a bunch of college credits from high school. So I had a lot of free time in conjunction with it being a liberal arts education. So there was a lot of, I could explore other interests. I enjoyed art, not on the consuming art, but on the production of art. I like, sculpture and drawing, so I dabbled in that a little bit. Obviously, with what I wanted to do for construction, as I got kind of towards the end, there were some environmental science things that I needed to do, and I got to study a lot of different things.
That's sweet.
I enjoyed that aspect of it.
Now, being out of college, being in the business for years, thought process on college. Do people need it? What do you think about college nowadays?
I probably have the same sentiment that a lot of people have nowadays. It's maybe a bit of a jaded perspective on college. I feel like it was something that I did because I felt I was supposed to, right? But if you'd have asked me when I was in the 8th grade, before sports and things like that really became an influence, I wanted to jump right into work of some sort, and do a trade or something, because I wanted to do my trade and then do my cars, snowmobiles, jet ski thing on the weekends, right? I wanted to live that lifestyle. And as I became an athlete in high school and kind of maybe felt peer pressure or community pressure to be this guy that made it out and went to college and played sports, and and then too, my dad with his situation never had the opportunity to go to college.
Yeah.
My mom too, it was never encouraged, and so I give it a shot. In hindsight, to answer your question, if you're doing something, like nursing, or you want to be a doctor,
absolutely,
yeah, you need it. Yeah. But for me, there's kids that we hire in our company that we bring on board that, they're 18, 20 years old with, right out of high school or whatever, or maybe they tried something else and came on board with us. They're living good lives. I don't think you need it.
Yep.
I don't think you need it. And that's not a knock on college. It's not saying that it's the worst thing in the world. I'm just saying you should really have some conversations with yourself about what's your end goal. A lot of that comes into the light that blue collar work is shown in, and I think that me and some other people in our industries are pushing to change the narrative on that and show that it's a good life, very good life.
Yeah, when I graduated high school, there's a couple of options: police officer, heavy equipment operator, and then what I ultimately went and decided, personal trainer. So I went RCTC here in town, did a semester of personal training. I was like, it was fun, but I was like, I'm not going to do this for the rest of my life. So I stopped, started working, went to a Bible college, a couple years later, did a semester there. That was fantastic. But again, I'm like thinking in my head, I was out in Wyoming. I'm like, at this time, I just don't see this being, again, what I'm going to pursue. So stop, go back work. And so I did 2 semesters of college and 2 different colleges, 2 different things, and just decided, this isn't, I just didn't like school, didn't love the homework, loved the people aspect of it, loved the community, the people, hated the lectures and the homework. And I'm like, I got to do it.
Yeah.
And, but yeah, that's my college experience.
So you were honest with yourself
Yeah.
at a very pivotal time in your life where you could have taken the outside influence of other people. Don't quit. Just get it done, and then you can always fall back on your degree, man. And
Yeah.
that's good on you. I mean, that takes courage.
It was one of those things where I was a firm believer with college. There's definitely professions where you have to go to college. That's just
It's undeniable. Yep.
And then but like I was a big trades guy. When I KFI, the job that I had previous from starting this company was the first office job I've ever had. I was always outside. I'd move, like I went in high school. I was mowing lawns and doing projects like that with just freelance basically, and worked for a landscaper. But it was always like manual labor. It was always stuff like that, and I enjoyed the equipment side of thing. And I worked at a camp, and I ran the Bobcat, and had a blast doing that. And I was just like, I like equipment, so I was like, I'll go do that, and ended up just not. But I love that stuff, and so I'll have to come out and we'll have to drive some equipment
Anytime. That's an open invite. If you want to come out and run something, I mean, you can't be any worse than me. That's I was on a site on Friday, and one of the guys was like, "Hey, can you jump in the dozer and do XYZ? I don't really have time to do it." And I'm like, "Are you sure? You sure you want me to do that? Because I'm not going to promise it's going to be in better shape than it is now." And that's a huge realization, because a lot of people look and like, you should know how to run this stuff, and it's like, yeah, I can, but I'm not in it every day, and I'm actually not the best. I don't have like the most natural talent for running the machinery, so I'm gonna leave that to you guys.
Well, it's like guys can get so good at it.
Oh, we have
running it day in and day out. You can just fantastic.
Yep.
And that's your craft.
Yep. It takes seat time, but you look at some of the mine reclamations we do when we're done extracting resources and close some of these up and into farmable land or ponds, whatever we're doing with them. It's artistry in the truest sense, as much as a carpenter or a furniture craftsman is. That we're dirt craftsmen. Really, these guys are sloping and shaping the land so it can be used again. Because that's another misconception about what we do as far as mining. It's not an end use for a landscape. It's an interim use. Because once you're done extracting the resource that the infrastructure needs, you can close it up and restore it into better than it was when you got there.
Yep.
And little tangent, but that's just something that, in this day and age, it's a huge misconception that we're raping the land of the natural resources. But it's like, hey, you all drove here today, didn't you?
Everyone drove to work.
Yeah.
I like it. So, kind of fast forwarding now. What's your day to day look like? What's operations look like for you?
So, when you look at our organizational structure, there's 8 to 10 aggregate processing crews at any given time, give or take situations. Tony and I jointly oversee those directly. We simplify it by stating that he handles the equipment aspect of things, and I handle the people, personnel. With that, there's other offshoots. I deal with environmental compliance and things like that. And then he deals with, maybe some client relations. But that's how it's split. So really, my typical day. Not to sound cliche, there's really no typical day, right?
Yeah.
Today I'm down here with you.
Yep.
Had some stuff I had to handle over email, but when we're done, the rest of my week's going to involve traveling to a few job sites, mostly just checking in. Hey, how is this guy working out for you? I'll be speaking with the foreman, right? Hey, I rotated people. Is this a good fit? How's he doing? Is he progressing? Is he doing what you need him to do? Because some crews we have, they're solidified. They're working teams that have been together for years. You just leave them, set it, and forget it.
Absolutely.
And then there's some where you like to try the dynamics on how the people work out together. Because look at like the NFL, right? Certain people thrive on certain teams.
Yeah.
So that's what we try and do. We try and put the right people in the right places so where they can really excel, and find them new opportunities. We have some guys that we put them in a machine and they're good at the loader, but hey, you maybe have a little bit of an inclination to be able to run the crushing and screening equipment. So maybe let's try you out here. And so that's what I like doing. I like working with the people, asking them, what do you like? What do you don't like? How can we change things, and getting their 2 cents on it, and just really trying to allocate the human resources that we have.
You kind of do like a little bit of the marketing side too, right?
Yeah, that's kind of under my belt too.
Yeah.
And that's something I enjoy about being a business this size we are, is you can really have your hands in a lot of different categories.
Yeah, you wear a lot of hats.
Yeah, and I enjoy that part of it. I wouldn't like to be in a box. You just manage operations.
Stay in your lane. Yeah.
Because I do feel like it kind of coincides with what I did at school. It's like, spend a little time dealing with marketing, spend a little time dealing with this, and it's helpful for me because it keeps things fresh. There's never stagnation. I have an accounting minor that was more so solely focused on the skill, not enjoyable for me at all. There are times where I need to, go through a billing and make sure things are true and accurate to what we loaded out. But, I am very excited to go out and get my drone in the air and fly around and take some pictures after that. So it's,
100%.
There's give and take with it. Yeah.
What's the family aspect like, working with family?
Good. Would I recommend it to anybody? Absolutely not. But by the grace of God, we're able to make it work.
What's the key?
Still figuring it out.
Yeah.
There's interesting dynamics there because obviously my dad and his brother Bill are siblings, and they were business owners for a long time. And then my mom also came on board with the company, just kind of, it was one of those things that happened before it officially happened. She was helping with the books nights and weekends, and then came on board full-time officially after all of us kids went to school. And so she's in the business too. So my mom and dad are coworkers and spouses, and there's a whole bunch of dynamics at play there. But
you got different age groups, you got different thought processes.
Yeah, and so I think that it's this is a very interesting question. You would think I'd have a better answer for this, but one of the challenges we're overcoming now is understanding, okay, with this box, with this machine, this monster of a company we've created, what are we all best at?
Yeah.
But what do each of us just suck at? Be honest. Because there's some things that each of us just aren't good at doing. So let's not have you handle that. So there's some weird conversations that go on. And
how often does everyone meet like that?
So, I think for the first probably 40 years of the business, I think my dad and uncles met maybe once or twice, it seems. Chatted about some things, but we communicate on a daily basis. So but it's divisional. So right. Myself and Tony and Joe, my dad, will talk, I don't know, probably 15, 20 times a day via text or phone call. We pride ourselves as a business to be able to make decisions on the fly. That's another thing I enjoy. There's no departmental approval or paperwork bullshit you need to go through. It's just like, hey, what do you
All
think
sit
about
down
this?
board meeting.
Let's do it. No,
vote.
I mean, it's just quick. We don't even have a conference room at our office.
Yeah.
That's part of growth. We built one and then filled it up with cubicles, but yeah, we don't make decisions really by committee or however you want to term it. It's more so just like, hey, what do we need to do? Okay, steer the ship in that direction.
Yep.
That's helpful for us.
So just in talking to different people and interviewing different people, the two things I hear a lot of is with family businesses, because there's a lot of generational companies that have been in here, and it's give and take. There's always give and take with family stuff, because again, everyone's got different thought processes and whatnot. And then kind of what you're saying too is like find what you're good at and just you're kind of handling this portion of it.
Correct. Yep.
And everyone's got their sweet spot, and so you're not always butting heads and on top of each other and doing stuff like that. It's just like, for the most part, you're handling this. For the most part, you're handling this. Obviously, there's crossover. Obviously, there's different things because you wear multiple hats. You still have all the conversations, but it's kind of like the harmony.
Exactly. Yep.
Of family business, it seems.
Yep.
And even on a small scale, working with my brother, we've had to navigate how things look and whatnot. So it's been interesting, but it's the best parts, but sometimes the most stressful parts.
The highest highs and the lowest lows, it seems. Yep.
100%. Yeah. I want to kind of ask too, what one of the things that I'm seeing right now quite a bit in construction industry in general is this recruitment need. And I wanted to get you kind of like your thought on that. Well, first of all, I mean, is that what you guys are seeing personally? Because we see a ton of that. And then what do you think that attests to?
Maybe rephrase that question. So obviously the people, you want to talk about the looming people problem in the workforce.
Well, yeah, looming people problem.
To speak on that, as far as heavy equipment operators, we're very fortunate to have a scale and solutions implemented to where there's never a looming or a huge gap.
Right.
Machines parked everywhere, right? Part of that is attributed to our people being extremely dynamic and versatile. We have a lot of guys that, similar to us as a family, can wear many hats, do many things. That's huge for us because then the show goes on everywhere, right?
Yeah.
Maybe not at full speed, but we're able to cover the spread, so to speak. We're fortunate in that aspect. We noticed this coming a couple of years ago, and that's where we made the decision to bring somebody on board full-time, because we were looking at the candidate pool we were receiving and things like retainage, just based on what we were doing, and we knew something had to change. So we were fortunate enough to have the foresight to get ahead of the people problem, per se.
And retention's been good.
What's that?
Retention
Very
good for you
yeah,
guys.
very super non-characteristic for the industry.
That's a big key for a lot of people that aren't having these issues. It's just people are happy and they're staying.
Yep. What I attribute it to is probably the small dynamics that each crew has on their own. So company-wide, there's probably about a dozen crews, right? And that's comprised of the 8 or 10 aggregate processing and then the 3 or 4 trucking, transport, delivery groups.
Yep.
There's good team dynamics there, and it starts with the on-site leadership, the guy that you have at the helm, and he's not always a rah people person. Sometimes he's kind of a grumpy, sarcastic old grouch.
I think a lot of time they're not.
Right. But
you guys that have been doing it, but they just kind of moved up to the next step.
You pair them with people that take that feedback well, because let's just take a blank 18-year-old kid.
Yeah.
Not every 18-year-old kid needs to be patted on the back because that wasn't his upbringing. Some of these kids had, maybe an old man that was a bit of a grump, and that's how that kid receives feedback and learns. And he wouldn't thrive in a situation where he's got somebody waving pom-poms and cheering him on. He needs somebody that he feels like he constantly needs to work for approval towards, So it's trying to find out how somebody works in the interview process when we bring them on board, try them out at a few different sites with a few different foremen, and get them plugged into a place where they can really run. And that's been huge for us for retainage, is not so much basing it on these are your skills and this is where I need you, but more so this is your personality and this is probably where you're going to have the best time working.
Which is huge because a lot of retention too doesn't necessarily come down to like pay,
Mm-mm.
It's how well do you enjoy this?
Correct.
Coming to work. Are you dreading your Monday?
Mm-hmm.
Or is it like, dude, I get to, go out and be with these guys that I enjoy hanging around and do the work that I like doing. And
mm-hmm. I had a conversation on the way down with 2 guys. They're, both 20 years old. One of them is a site supervisor, and the other one's an operator that's been with us this is 2nd year. They're going to work like their 3rd straight weekend. And they asked me, hey, can we keep working on this site? We want to keep this project rolling. We like the numbers we're doing. Can we keep going? I'm like, hell yeah. I'm not going to stop you. So you just pair people up and give them some responsibility, ownership in the decisions they're making on site. Problems take care of themselves.
So then for other companies that are really struggling with this, because there's a lot, do you think it's issues with the company and the management side, or is it just the people that are coming up into the industry, graduating high school or college now, that are just different than our dads?
I think companies need to focus on what they can control, and you're not in and of yourself going to create a societal change and change the candidates you're getting. You need to curtail your approach. I think it's important to consider who you have doing the recruitment. You've maybe heard, I maybe told you, the guy that we brought on board to do our recruitment was an old roommate of mine. He was, long story short, in the cities tracking down like CFOs and things like that in more of a corporate world, and he kind of got sick of it and wanted to kind of transition to the blue collar world, and he loves it because that's kind of how he grew up. Mom and dad are blue collar people, and he loves it, and he just loves having conversations with these people, explaining to them what we do, kind of getting their life story, getting to know them, and seeing if it's a good fit. And so, point being, I think it's important to know who you have doing your recruiting and screening, and make sure that they truly understand who the hell you are as a business and what you're trying to sell, because they're really a guidance counselor for these people. They're a salesperson, for your company. There's times where Ty gets on the phone with somebody who applied to our company, talks with them, and he point blank says, hey, I know you're interested, but I don't think this would be a good fit for you. And steers them in another direction. And out of pure respect for their time and energy, and I think that's important.
It's a lot of time and hiring somebody and the paperwork and this to make sure. So seeing early on that this is you might be better somewhere else. That's awesome.
And I think some companies look at it as asses in seats. You can't do that.
We just got to grab as many.
Nobody is better than the wrong buddy. And that I didn't make that up. I got that from somewhere, but that's truer than anything I've ever said. Because you get somebody in your system that maybe they're not a bad person, but they're just not a good fit. And what you had said earlier, they maybe aren't loving the work they're doing. It's going to trickle down on the rest of the crew. I had kind of a package deal. 2 guys that I hired, they were buddies. They wanted to come on board with us. They saw what we were doing on social. They thought they'd give it a shot. And they just point blank said, hey, this ain't for me, and we parted ways. Didn't try and twist their arm and say, I need you for the rest of just finish the season out, and I maybe did it in short, but broad picture, hey, what's the best for you? Go do something else. One kid wanted to do heavy civil work and utility work, go do it. We're not doing that. Go do that somewhere else. Wish you the best, and we're good,
I love that they found you on social, though.
Yeah, I mean,
awesome.
it's cool. Because that's an ROI if there ever is one, right?
A lot of things are changing like that. That's, how can you, a lot of guys, how can we make the industry cool? And it is a cool industry, the equipment, the guys, it's.
Yep, and I don't take any credit for that. I took my influence, from Aaron Witt and Keaton Turner. I mean, those guys, they were doing it, and I kind of observed what they were doing, and I was like, okay, well, take this, take that, implement it into how we do things, and run with it. So those guys have been huge mentors and inspirations for me.
Absolutely. Yeah. When I talk to somebody and they say nowadays that, well, the social media stuff, it's not gonna, we're not gonna, see new work come from it or new employees or whatnot. It's just, in my head, it's just you're so far off.
Just wait.
Missing the mark. And
just wait.
It's like that's all we do, and I absolutely know it works.
Mm-hmm.
And
because I would imagine now you have clients that you've done projects with
mm-hmm.
to showcase their business, and they could probably track back with some of their new client acquisitions and say, hey, I found you because of XYZ you did with MediaCore.
Yep. And
that's just the way the world works.
Yeah, you put out a recruitment video, and next thing you know, they're hiring
mm-hmm.
multiple people a week, and what's going on?
Mm-hmm. Because, and you guys coined this term on your YouTube channel. I guess I'd never heard it anywhere before, but like the virtual business card.
Yeah.
Some content like video is around forever. You kind of have like this residual from it. Anybody can go look that up and see it. And whereas like something like maybe radio advertisement is just like a stamp in time. Mm-hmm. And if you're not there to catch it, it's gone. Whereas you can maybe seek out some of this longer form video content or even something like this and find out stuff about a company and see if it's a good fit.
It's crazy how like stuff like this, just somebody will come across it and long time from now.
If
awesome.
If you had to explain your company now to somebody from 1994, they would think you're crazy.
Yeah.
You do what? And that's a thing? You generate sales?
Mm-hmm.
How?
Yeah.
No. Times are changing.
Yeah, that's not, yeah. No, that's great. Yeah, the recruitment thing is definitely a challenge, but it has been fun to see. I guess we only get to see it on what we do,
Mm-hmm.
But it has been really cool to see companies go, hey, we hired our GM because of this, like we sold our company because of that,
Mm-hmm.
like huge things. You're like, damn, just because we made a video and told you guys a story or did this or that, and it's like, when you find something that like when it works, you're like that feeling inside. It's just like accomplishment.
Yep,
like,
it was worth it.
Kind of moving into one thing I always like to ask people that are kind of in business and entrepreneurship and growth and that kind of thing is, for you personally, what motivates you? What keeps you going and drives, the hard work, the late nights,
It's probably a combination of things. There's probably not one North Star that gets me out of bed every day, because every day there's a new challenge and you kind of need a different why to get over it. But I think being third generation in the company is huge.
Mm-hmm.
Days where I don't really feel like fucking doing it, you look back and think, okay, well, did we come this far to only come this far? Well, no, let's keep going. Mm-hmm. And that thought train helps some of our forward trajectory, because is what for a long time was 2 owners transitions into 4. I actually said this to my dad this weekend. We were standing in the garage. I said, worst case scenario, the 4 of us boys just take the business and run it as is, and fizzles out and we go die in Florida somewhere. And I said, is that really that bad? And he's like, no, I guess not. And I said, but I'd be disappointed if that's how it played out.
Right.
I said, I think that we have way too much talent waiting in the wings to not lay the hammer down, and we've been innovative and adaptive for so long. Why quit? So I think that there's some things on the horizon. I would bet if you and I had to sit down again in 5 or 10 years, there'd be a whole litany of shit to talk about that has changed and grown, because one hurdle we're getting over with the age gap with Bill and Joe, there's like a 12-year spread, but there's also like a 12-year spread between Tony, and then there's Jake, and then there's myself and my youngest brother Brian. There's like a huge gap there. And so Brian has been out of school for a while now, and he's getting up to speed, and he's finding his niche. He's finding where he grooves in the business, what he's great at. Mm-hmm. And I think once he gets really settled in, we're all going to just, the last couple of years too, we've done things and brought on people from other companies that have really brought in outside influences and perspectives for much bigger, more successful companies that can really help us eliminate some of the things we're not doing well, and refine those processes. But then also we're doing some things where we're like, holy shit, you do it this way, that's cool, yeah, keep doing that.
Yep.
So it's really fun. It's really exciting to see where this thing is headed. And I don't even remember what the original question was, but
What motivates you?
yeah, what motivates me is the prospect of the future. So really looking back at where this started, where it's been throughout the years, what it's endured, and the proposition and the opportunity. That's another thing I'm really turning my eyes onto. This is no longer just like a job working for the old man. It's like, this is a huge responsibility, because there's 100 people that the kids eat because this thing makes revenue every week. We got to keep that going. It's just exciting. It's an exciting kind of pressure. And I really look forward to that, and growing it into whatever it can be, whatever that may be. There's conversations we have where it's like we're in this space. How do we expand vertically off that? Maybe horizontally, pivot, move. And that's where I say, like 5-10 years. Right now we're in the aggregate production space. There's some verticals from there we can branch into and grow into. It's super exciting to prospect about the future. Granted, you can sit and daydream all day long.
Yeah.
There's an application of the ideas.
There's a healthy,
there's a healthy balance,
Yep.
but that's where Tony and I come into play. I'm really good at thinking and dreaming, and he's really good at just grabbing and going.
Yeah.
So there's good dynamics there.
Yep. That's the VI combo.
Yeah.
Yep. Visionary and the integrator.
There you go.
No, I love the, one of the things, again, just the motivation of knowing what it can become, because not a lot of people say that, and I feel like I have that, even for what we're doing, and I tell people that all the time. It's like we're in this spot right now where video is going crazy. How can we stay at the forefront of it? Before everyone, wants to be in and doing it and stuff like that. How can we already be established in front of it? But what really motivates me too is just like, I can still see the need so heavily in all over Midwest, and just knowing what it can become if we keep doing this correctly. It's like, that just gets me excited.
Right, because there's an endless amount of work and things and industry innovation you can implement to take this to the next level. What do you think? So photography for purposes is dying, and because people's attention spans are getting shorter. So like things like social, they need that video, that Instagram
movement.
Reels, that TikTok, that movement.
Yeah.
What do you think the next evolution of that is?
Like, what's going to be after video?
Yeah. What's next after video?
I mean, you're going to have video for a long time yet. I think in anything there's cycles. We go from one thing to the next, and then we're like, then it goes back, and then it's like, okay, now this is cool again, and it happens with
you could pinpoint audio with that, because things like talk shows maybe took a dive, and then once it became, you could do it at the grassroots level with podcasting. That's kind of maybe where the revolution with that happened in the cycle. So you're thinking there might be a downturn with video at some point?
I think there'll be a lot of on the rise yet. I think at some point it could, but I don't see where you wouldn't need video.
The visual element, yeah.
The visual
and
side.
I know you don't have a crystal ball, and I kind of put you on the spot, but
it's interesting because podcasts have grown so much recently. So like, we live in a society too where I don't have any time for anything. So if I can be driving or I can be working, but also listening, that's why podcasts are so cool. I don't have to, because you don't just sit in your big leather chair and you close your eyes and you just listen to a podcast.
You can't.
Well,
you couldn't.
Right, and it's just no one does that.
Right.
That's why audiobooks are so big too. It's like you can be actively doing something else that's taking your time, but I can also listen. So that's where the audio comes into play. But when you talk about social media, and I think it really goes back to what's your goal. Is the goal, marketing? Is it branding? Is it promoting this content? Is it, because influence, I think, is a big thing. You need to be an influencer in your space all day long. That's gonna help you grow immensely faster than, just if we keep doing what we're doing, we're gonna grow. If you're known industry-wide, worldwide, nationwide for what you do, that's gonna just, again, skyrocket. I think in anything, any industry, anything what you do, it's like, if you can become that industry leader, the source of knowledge, whatever, people are looking at you, they're listening to you, things like that, you're now getting more opportunities that you would never get otherwise. So I think companies, and it's hard for a lot of businesses too, because you own a company. I mean, think of your dad right now. He owns it right now currently. He's probably not going out there pumping himself up, going, hey, I'm the man. Like, everybody look at what I'm doing. These are humble guys. They're like, I don't want the spotlight. I just want to do my thing.
He's pretty low profile. He's a pretty low profile guy.
And even younger generations, they still like that. I don't want all the spotlight. I'm trying to promote my guys and my company, and it's not all about me, which it's not. But in the same sense too, there still has to be an element of like a face of the company and somebody kind of in that industry leader position. So I think influencers are going to be a big thing, and that's a lot of that comes with education. If you can keep that video, you're going onto rock piles and pulling rocks in.
Yeah, no, and I appreciate that.
But like,
it's
you're
good
educating still.
Yeah,
and it's entertaining. So it's like that. It's that infotainment, space.
Sure. That's probably a huge opportunity, I guess, I have with what I do and what we're doing, and being able to leverage that, because a big problem we have, I've maybe mentioned a few times here, is just the public perception of what our industry is and does, and truth be told, how it's a critical factor in people's everyday lives. If it's not farmed, it's mined, right? You've maybe heard that adage or not, but it's something that, it's probably my responsibility to do my part, and it's pretty eye-opening to hear that from you.
It's interesting because not a lot of people want to, take it up and be responsible for that thing. I'll let somebody else do it, or
Sure.
But is there? Because and I struggle with that sometimes with my guys, because for the longest time, it was Josh's Media Corps. Longest time, they think of Media Corps, they think of Josh. I wanted to change that. They think of Media Corps, they think of what we do, they think of the team, team aspect of everything. Like, you get a lot of buy-in from people, your employees too, when this is us, it's not just me. Then there's another part of me that goes, I still want to do all that. I know I still need to do all that, but I also need to be a public figure in this space to where this is going to lead to different opportunities that we would never get before.
Because in business, people buy from people, and what you don't want to be is a faceless company.
Right. Well, you got to know, like, and trust. But I think a lot of companies too get in trouble where you might be on social, you might be doing marketing, you might be doing all this stuff, and you just think that people know who you are. Oh, they know who we are, or they know what we do. Well, you just shot yourself in the foot, because they don't know who you are, and they may know you for one thing, but they didn't know you also did this. So how much business are you leaving on the table?
A good example of that is, we get people in our local area that call us and ask us to do X, Y, Z. Hey, you want to come look at digging my basement? It's like, we've never dug a basement for anybody in the however long we've been in business, So it's cultivating public perception, giving them the information of what you actually do and what you're capable of. Yeah, no, that's very, very interesting and eye-opening to hear that. I guess I probably had some of those thoughts in my mind, but never able to put them together in that way.
So it's just, it's fun for me to think about those kinds of things, because that's, we started as a video company. We're still a video company, but what changed is where people called us in the past and they said, hey, I have this project. Can you shoot this and what's it going to cost? And now we're getting to the point where it can be, we still do a little bit of that, obviously. Something comes up, they need it, perfect. What excites me is we're going into this space now of people recognize us as somewhat of a leader in the area, doing what we do, but not just for video, but for like what we know. So let's say, you call me up and you say, instead of, Josh, I got this project going over here, I need you guys to shoot this. It's Josh, hey, I like your guys' stuff, I want to meet you, and this is what I'm having issues with. Is there anything that we can do to solve that with what you guys do? So it becomes more of this like, oh, cool, like now I can dive into like these different companies, figure out if there's a way that we can plug what we do into solving that issue.
It's not so much transactional, it's more so implementive and yeah, how can your solutions fix my problems? Interesting.
Because like our bread and butter is still company stories. It's still who you are, what you do, why you do it, what motivates you, what sets you apart, things like that, telling you, so again, we don't have that person that goes, can you dig my basement? Like, no, they're going to know what you do. And like, that's what we want. So we do a ton of that. But the other side now, and why recruitment's been so big, is because recruitment's been an issue. So perfect. We can gear a message and a video and content just for recruiting people, informing them on the work environment, what they're going to be doing. We hear that all the time. It's like, bring somebody in, lunchtime, they leave. We went through that whole process, they never came back. Why? They didn't know what to expect. Oh, this isn't what I signed up for. I'm not doing this. Perfect. You just wasted all that time hiring somebody for that. Which takes a lot of time and resources for. There's so much you can do information-wise, because that's how we consume like any information. It's video. Sure, some audio, but like, do you want to read a job post, or do you want to watch a 2-minute video that's going to show you, explain it, and show the management team and why they're the right option, and go.
YouTube is the new Wikipedia for a lot of that stuff, for a lot of research.
How do I, swap this thing on my car?
YouTube. Yep.
How do I do this? YouTube.
Yeah, if it doesn't have a video,
it's just how people consume information. So if you can,
I never thought about it like that.
I tell people that on their website. You got what, 15, 20 pages of different resources and drop downs and this and that. I'm not going to navigate all that just to figure out what I can figure out in a 3 to 5 minute video about who you guys are. And that whole time I'm getting to know you, I see you, I get that buy-in. I can start to know, like, and trust you before I even meet you. Because I love when I hear and I meet somebody, man, I feel like I already knew you. Perfect. And I did my job. You should. We got to be using social media, digital, internet. We got to be using that kind of stuff for business. And everything's relational. Business is relational. So if you can get all that stuff across and be less transactional with things, it's going to keep you growing and not slowly fading out. So that's what excites me. We kind of went off a little bit, but
I think you hit the nail on the head.
It's fun, it's exciting, and I think we adapt with anything. People are saying, like, I mean, not a lot of people, but again, like you have different family members or whatever, and they ask you, what are you going to do if this happens, or like, look at the economy, like, people cut their marketing budgets first, and this and that, and it's like, well, one, there's always going to be a need, still, so like I'm not worried about that, but there's also always an industry that's benefiting from what's going on. These businesses are getting hit hard, and they're starting to die out. Somebody's always doing well. You just change who you're working with too. So it's like, I'm just big on being adaptive and trying to help people and do what works. I get excited about that. We had our first company that said, hey, I'm going to pay for you guys to just come in for a half day and meet with our leadership team, our third-party marketing company, and you guys will all sit in the boardroom. Before we even got any deals or videos going on, it was just like, this is what we have going on, our needs, issues, wants. What could you do? Perfect. That's fantastic. Because then I can just lay it all out, and then you pick and choose what you want to do.
Yep.
You know, if anything, it's like. So that's what excites me. That's what I love. Just, you know, solving issues. It's not necessarily just making the video. It's like, what is this video doing?
You could go on Fiverr and get somebody to edit a video.
Yeah,
for you.
you don't you don't pay someone like me just for that video. You're paying for what that video is doing, and like that's where people. We're not going to be I always think about how can we not just be a commodity, with more and more people coming into the industry. Oh, video's just video. No, somebody could make you a video, but what's it doing for you? So I try to bring again like that strategy piece in. We're trying to implement more exclusivity pieces that we're going to try to unroll out, but we haven't yet. No one's heard of this, but I'd love to implement some kind of just playing off the exclusivity. This membership type, VIP something where you're in the club. Once you're working with us, you're in the club. You get access to this. You get access to these events. You get access, and it's just that. Our clients don't typically ever leave after they start working with us, which is awesome.
That's a huge selling point.
And how can we keep giving back, but also make this exclusive group? Because we like all the people that we work with. I host a breakfast club with different owners in the area. It's fantastic. These guys all, they knew of each other, but now they actually know each other.
Yeah, they're so busy fighting their own battles, they would never congregate like that unless orchestrated by somebody like yourself.
And it's awesome to get that community together of owners that have similar struggles and different information and different aspects of how would you do this. And most of it's just bullshit. But again, there's always somebody's got an issue.
There's one or two tidbits everybody's going to take away from the meeting.
So there's fun things like that we gotta we want to keep doing more and more of. But like you said, we're just excited for the future and the possibilities of what's coming.
What do you think? So when you started this a couple years ago, obviously with video, the hardware can be expensive.
Yep.
But relatively low barrier to entry.
Yep.
What were some of the hurdles you saw right out of the gate? Because I guess one of the questions when I walked in the door obviously was like, hardware, how did you acquire it? But it sounds like that wasn't an issue. But what were some of the hurdles you ran into?
The hardware wasn't an issue. It was the one, everyone had already been burned on social media by some social media third-party company. It says, hey, I can run your stuff. Spent a bunch of money, nothing came from it. And kind of video pairs a bit with that because you're putting it out on media channels typically. So there's a lot of fear with that. Like I don't want to spend a bunch of money again and nothing happens. Video's new. It was new, but it's still new. I'd say a majority of companies still haven't done video. So it's this new marketing effort. Like, if I bring up billboard, you know what that is. Hey, let's do a billboard. Perfect. We'll throw it up there, whatever. Radio. Come in, record your radio ad. We'll do it, whatever. But you start saying, you guys should be implementing video. And they hear that. Yeah, video's the next thing. But what does that look like? How do we make one? Who plans that out? What do we do with it afterwards? So one of the big hurdles was just education. We had a very first year in business, there was a competing video company. And I knew the guys. I know all the players in the game, and a lot of them aren't around anymore, but it's all right. One of the guys said that I still know and like him, and he's doing different stuff now, but I saw him in passing one time, and he had seen my stuff on social media, and we kind of talked, and when he left, it was like this remark of good luck, basically.
Like he was anticipating your demise?
Yeah. like he was seeing it personally, and they did kind of just phase out. But this element of people don't get it. They're not going to pay for it. They don't see the value in it. Good luck trying to make that happen, basically. So much of what I've done is educating people on the possibilities of what you can even do with video. Because once I talk to somebody and the green light goes off,
why didn't we do this 5 years ago?
Let's go. Why aren't we doing this now? But before that had never crossed their mind once.
And did you expect that going into this, that you were going to spend more time being an educator than the guy running the camera?
I mean, we were going to originally start as a social media marketing company.
Okay.
That also did video, because I kind of like making videos. But it changed with everyone being burned in social. I was like, I don't want to do that. Okay. Started doing videos. Oh, those are pretty cool. You know, we could do one of those. And your prices are obviously significantly different when you just start and are kind of in that proving ground. But I was told myself I'd never do videos for free, because a lot of guys would say that. They're like, do this for free, show what you can do, build up your reel. In some sense, that made sense, but I'm like, but this is my livelihood. Like, yeah. I'll do it discounted, but I'm not going to do it for
From
free.
a customer's perspective, if you get something for free, I guess my first thought is there's no perceived value there.
Right.
And your aptitude to actually buy and transact again is minimized.
Mm-hmm. But a lot of guys did that in the video industry. You could still find freelancers all over the place that'll go, a big company reaches out to a new guy, hey, you get to work with this company. Ooh. You know, you could say you worked with us, but you got to do it for free or something like that. And it happens all the time. People, you know, take advantage of young videographers and things like that. But it's still like, the other thing that we educate a lot of people on is, what's a bad video going to do for you?
I never thought about that.
Because you think like, oh, I'm getting a video for cheap or free or just discounted or hell, you're doing it yourself, maybe, you know. But
are you in a roundabout way?
No.
Videos
I'm not.
are bad.
I'm not. But I just came up because I'm like, oh yeah, well, you know, you do a lot of your own content.
That could go in the wrong direction very quickly.
But this is so you think about it in this sense of, here's social media. I come across your stuff. I have zero idea about who you are, what kind of person you are, what kind of morals you have, anything about you. This is all I have to go off of. Did you impress me? Mm-hmm. Or did you solidify that I'm never going to do business with you? You know? So it's like, if you do something bad or wrong or say the wrong thing or whatever, and that's the first time somebody sees you and they go, no thanks. You know? Like, shoot, did you just, again, shoot yourself in the foot doing something?
I like that.
So everything that we do, we tell people there's got to be a purpose for this. Don't just do a video, do a video. Have a purpose behind it, because then we can create it for a reason.
That's got a, I mean, that in a roundabout way, that's kind of the, I don't know what you'd call it, the grand finale. I mean, to seal the deal on a lot of this stuff, because you lay all those educational points out, and you hit them with that. You know, they're essentially that's the resume to the world. You know, what are you waiting for?
So a lot of times, you know, we don't have the high pressure stuff. It's not a decision that you make and you go, wish I didn't do that. It was like, so I'll give you the information and you decide what you want to do.
The guys that aren't around anymore, where do you think they maybe missed the mark?
A lot of them missed the mark on just the business side. There's a lot of creative people out there that can do a lot of fantastic work. They just don't have the business side of what they're doing. And a lot of guys, you're going to get to a point as a freelancer where you don't just want to be a freelancer anymore. You don't want it to just be you. You don't want to just do a certain level of projects. So what's next? You grow, you build a team. That adds a whole new aspect to business when you start bringing on people. And they don't expect that, and what comes with it, and the expenses, and the paperwork, and all the politics and of that. And then they go, yeah, this isn't for me. And
Well, it makes what they had set out to do not fun anymore.
right. And for me, I think it worked out because video is fun, but business is more fun.
Yep.
So I can find very talented, creative people like the guys that we have and more people out there, give them an opportunity to do really well, but also do what they love and work in a cool environment with cool people. It's like you could do that or try to, have all the headaches of doing it yourself. And then it starts to get attractive. Oh, that sounds way better than this. Or they try it because sometimes I've talked to people where it's like, I know you'd be a great fit here, but they're in the mindset of like, I want to do my own thing yet. It's like, respectfully, like you're like, yeah, okay, try it. Like, I don't want to hold you back from that because then you're going to have regrets. Go out and try it. And then they go, yep, like, perfect. Now you can join the team and like we can grow and progress and do all this stuff, and you can work and do things that you wouldn't have the opportunity to do alone. Use equipment that you wouldn't have the opportunity to use. And it's like, you're a part of something now. So it's like, those are cool things, to me and with people. But it'll be interesting how the industry changes because there's a lot of young people that can go, I could buy a camera and a gimbal and now I'm a videographer now. But how do you set yourself apart, so your company, the companies that you're reaching out to, don't go, hey, my son does video. So, okay. Like, again, if that's what you want representing, your millions of dollars worth of company and, that's that, fine. Because they're not educated on what could happen.
That's insane. I never looked at it that way.
Yeah.
But it's interesting to see it from your side of the fence, how you look outwardly and sell what you're doing.
But I think what you're doing is good because, like especially with reels, there's a time and a place for everything. I tell people they should be doing video. You should have somebody internal or a marketing person or yourself or an intern, whatever it is. You should be doing the consistent content, the raw stuff, the behind the scenes, what's going on, those kinds of things. You can't hire a company like us to do that every day. It's not feasible for us.
It wouldn't make sense.
It wouldn't make any sense. You got to be doing a certain level of stuff like that on your own to have consistency, to have that content, to still have people know who you are, what you do. And then there's a certain time that you bring in a company like us.
Yep, that's very true because I think you hit the nail on the head and maybe explaining the same thing in a different way, but you need to have the hard hat and blue jeans in the trenches. This is what we're doing, content. And then you need the suit and tie stuff because I guess when you and I probably talked about this when we had that Zoom call a while back, but when I look at content creation and marketing of a company, we need to market internally to the people who are already here. This is what we're doing and why, and as well as outwardly to prospective candidates, prospective team people that want to come on board with us, and then as well as new clients, prospective clients. Why would you want to work with us? You answered a lot of that in what you said earlier, but I mean, there's a lot of variability and different things you're trying to target. So you need consistent content, a varying, I guess, polishedness is maybe a word to describe it.
It is.
Because I enjoy just whipping out the iPhone and there's a wheel loader ripping through the mud.
Yep.
And people like that. But then they also need to see that fine-tuned stuff that articulates the company's story and values. I'm getting more out of this than you are out of me, I think.
Well, it's fun because there's no one size fits all for anybody.
Right.
In any industry. There's not, this video is going to do everything for you. No, you need a strategy, a plan, something that you're gonna implement. The more I get interested about marketing, the more books in marketing I read, and a lot of people don't understand marketing in general. So they go, I will try this. Let's say it's billboards. Okay, we tried that. Didn't do what I wanted. I'll go on and try radio. Okay, didn't do what I wanted. I'll try social media marketing. Didn't do what I wanted. They try all these different elements. marketing should have a strategy of using multiple things at one time for a specific goal. It's not just this, I don't understand it, so I'm going to give you money so I feel good in myself that I'm marketing, and, we'll see what comes from it.
Yeah. The marketing stuff kind of coincides with the recruitment. I think those were aspects of business that people maybe pushed to the wayside because they didn't see them as direct revenue generators. But those things need to have the same oversight and forethought that your primary revenue generators do. Because take that analogy that you had just said, you give somebody a budget outside of your company and say, go for it.
Yep.
It's not audited. There's no plan. Imagine how that would go for us if like say our winter service, we just said, okay, we're going to give you $5 million, just fix all of our equipment. And like you said, we feel good about it because we're doing it, right? We're doing it. Mm-hmm. How do you think that's going to work out for us? Do you think it's going to be done to compare it to the marketing thing? Is it going to speak for us the way we want to be spoken for? Mm-hmm. Is all the stuff going to be up to snuff? No, it's not.
That's where recruiting companies come to play.
Very interesting.
I'll kick you out, people that kind of fit what you're going for. That has nothing to do with like the culture and how they're gonna. So that's why I like when you guys take your time hiring. That makes the difference.
Yeah.
You find an all-star. He's staying, and if anything, he's elevating everybody else. Yeah. You start putting a couple bad eggs in there, and everyone's.
Yeah. No,
it's like
doesn't work.
So what you find that in any aspect of your company. If I don't know it and I don't want to take the time to understand it, I'll throw some money at it and just say I feel better because that's at least being handled or done or whatever.
Can't do it that way. I never looked at it like that. But if plain as day, people just take a scoop shovel and throw money at stuff and think their problems are going to be solved. You can solve problems with money, but there needs to be some direction and guidance and proper allocation of the assets.
Because in marketing, especially, everyone looks at the giants. Well, they're doing these things. The giants know that they're losing money in marketing, and they've prepared for that. They've prepared to just spend shit tons of money on different things and just kind of like that.
Figure
that
something's going to stick. Okay.
That it's going to bring in something. Small companies, medium companies, they don't have budgets to just.
They need to be tactical.
They can cover everyone.
Yeah.
So they try one thing, and it doesn't work, and they try the next thing, and it doesn't work. Yeah, it's because you're not doing multiple things. You're not putting a strategy in place, and you don't have where you're trying to take the customer's journey, or like what you want them to do at the very end of it, and.
Interesting. So you think for small companies, the sweet spot would be to take kind of the best of both those approaches, the maybe shotgun and the snipe approach?
Well, yeah, again, it all comes down to what your goal is.
Okay.
If you want to recruit. If you want to sell this specific service, you can make an ad all about that service and sell the service. If you want people to know about who you are, because, again, you're getting questions that you shouldn't be getting because people don't know who you are, work on your brand a little bit more. When I think of WDS, what I think of, and what pops up. So I think everything that you do, training, educational stuff, you see a lot of companies, again, that have that guy that trains people in and day out, same thing, over and over and over. How could you just switch that up and implement, again, some kind of video training series where they just come in, watch this stuff? You're probably still going to need somebody to hold their hand a little bit, but they're going to have a lot more of a baseline information at that point.
Yep. You tackle it from a few ways. So with us, in years past, when we were a much smaller company, the way we handled safety training, so we were compliant with federal regulations for mining, was in the spring we would hold an annual refresher class for all of our returning employees, and then we would have new miner training, which really a lot of it happened in the field, kind of that person-on-person thing like you had mentioned. Problem with that is you have a varying result depending on who's conducting the training. As time has grown, we're hiring people from the greater 5-state area, as well as some outliers, some Arizona guys. We have a guy from Arkansas that work with us, and so how do you train them? He's not going to travel up to Minnesota for an 8-hour refresher course.
Absolutely.
A month before he's going to start work. So we looked at that as, okay, how do we tackle this? So we started looking into like online MSHA training. Because there is a set standard for compliance, there is a curriculum that you can adhere to check the box, so to speak, and make sure they have the adequate classroom time before they go out in the field. So that's been huge for us. So we work right now with a company called HSI. They're huge on OSHA, MSHA compliance, workplace safety, things like that. And essentially what it is, so if you are a brand new hire, we get your email, we send you the link with the curriculum you need, which is pretty much your 24-hour new minor training, and it's a minimum of 24 hours of coursework. So if you are able to speed through it, there's stuff we need to finish on the back end in the field, subjects we need to go over just so we have that 24-hour baseline, or there's additional topics you can do that cover things maybe outside of the scope of normalcy. So like with sand and gravel, we're not dynamite blasting, but you can learn a little bit about dynamite and explosives and how that, if you're working on in a quarry application, that you might run into that. So it's just beneficial knowledge for the future, right? So we got on board with the online training a couple years ago, simply out of logistics, because it wasn't feasible. We were hiring people all year long. We weren't able to send these guys out in the field with zero experience and expect our guy to do his job and then hold this guy's hand and get him up to speed. So we'd use this as a way to get the baseline knowledge to the people. Speaking on...
That's great that they provide that, though.
It's huge.
They saw that need. And
they're a good company to work with. They help us fix a problem, and planning on working with them for the foreseeable future on it. We have... I don't know what you'd call it, like an account manager or somebody that I work with over email, and it just works good. It's kind of that transactional relationship, but that's all we need it to be. We're not at a scale where we can justify having that in-house person that's all they do is train, and I think that's maybe a good thing, because we don't just push money at a salary for a training guy and hope the problem gets solved, right? This way we're maybe proactive on the curriculum and gone through it myself, and that was kind of part of the vetting process, because it's not cheap. So it was something that we've been doing for probably a handful of years now. It's been great. We'll never go away from it. But speaking on that, with online training, as we look for continued education, our company and over 100 now are working with BuildWit on BuildWit training. And what that is they want to implement it for general construction, to bring that baseline of knowledge up for people, as well as continuing education. And in conversations we've had with them, I want to use it as a sort of benchmarking for people, because with what we do, we run a variety of machines, and unfortunately it's not financially sensible to let everybody just run whatever they feel like running to get experience. So what we want to do is utilize this and the certain modules for each machine to get people up to speed, so they have a theoretical and like a classroom experience of what the theory and everything behind running an excavator before they get in the seat. Which is, I think, would be very helpful, because if it's just you jump in the seat and it's your first experience with it, you got to kind of, okay, well, don't undermine yourself, and you can't really learn that lesson the hard way too many times. So very excited for that.
Absolutely.
It's something that we're implementing kind of person by person from different levels of the business. Some of it's redundant, like some of our foremen, they're going to go through how to grease a skid steer training, but you need to, because they're still in the development stages of the software. But I see that as huge. And do you kind of see where I'm going with that? Is it's a continued education,
right? Because
when you're out in the field, you're going to learn through observation, but I think there's also that virtual classroom element where we're watching videos and taking short quizzes afterwards is going to help keep yourself sharp.
Well, and one thing that we didn't talk a lot about was how technology is changing the industry, and specifically we talked a little bit on the marketing and that side, but how the equipment's changing and the, what's in these machines and like how they're operating and like all this, new stuff. I mean, that you got dozers running all on GPS and, and it's just like it makes it easier, but you got to learn how to use it.
Mm-hmm.
And there'll be consistently new stuff all the time. So you'll have to have some kind of that, that continual education on keeping your guys up to date on what's going on with this new equipment too.
Yeah. One of the things I really like on the crushing aspect with like these crushing and screening machines was, so I'm going to try and explain this without you knowing exactly how the machine works. So it's a crushing chamber where the rocks fall into, and then through compression of the oscillation of the cone head in certain applications, it resizes the rocks, and they can only get out if they meet a certain size, right?
Okay.
That's called your closed side setting. So when it's on one end and it's as closed as it can possibly be, only a 3/4 inch rock's getting through there, right? Mm-hmm. So it wasn't that long ago, we had an old style cone where in order to set that, you had to put a hydraulic pump, and there's all these hydraulic cylinders on it, press them up, and then shim around the cone to set the height, right?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And you had to kind of know what combination of what shims resulted in what closed side setting based on the current state of wear of your liners. So that took a little bit of, a lot of experience. Really, you had to be doing it for a while to know what the hell you were doing.
Yeah.
Without proper guidance. Now, the OEMs and some of the dealers we've worked with to implement some of these fail safes. So inside your control van, you have a monitor that shows an illustration of your cone, and as you hit the button open and closed, it'll show you the fractions of the closed side setting you're adjusting to. So what that does is that lowers that learning curve. Mm-hmm. So what we've seen to help combat the lack of guys able to run a crew is we've helped speed up the learning process in that regard. So you just have these onboard diagnostics. It'd essentially in the old days it was like driving a car without a speedometer or a tachometer. You had to know what blowing up was going to sound like to let off the throttle, right? And now we have indicators where it's just quantifiable. Hey, this is where your closed side setting is at. Adjust accordingly. It just helps the guys do their job. Mm-hmm. And that's been huge for us. And to your point with the machines, some like the Cat 982s that they're coming out with, it's insane. I mean, they just have all these indicators and gauges for different things like filter health that you can see from the cab. And
do you think they'll ever operate them without a person in it?
Yeah, so that's something that in years I've spoken with people from both of the OEMs that I guess some of the bigger ones come out to, John Deere, Caterpillar, etc. With autonomous vehicle technology in cars, you have like your Cadillac Super Cruise, your Tesla, I don't know what the term is, but hands-free or whatever it is. Mm-hmm. When they're using those, it's kind of a different implementation because in a mine site, it's an ever-changing landscape.
Correct, yeah.
So like if you're trying to have a haul truck be autonomous, the reference points that it uses are constantly changing. Whereas, like I-94 is probably going to always be I-94, granted, mm-hmm. road construction, right? But on a daily basis, mine sites are changing. So it's challenging to figure out how to cross that bridge. Now, granted, a lot has transpired probably since some of these conversations. I'm not at the cutting edge of that technology, but to answer your question, I would expect.
What about before fully autonomous? If there was just remote?
Yeah, remote stuff exists. So there's companies like
just running stuff out of your office.
Like Caterpillar. I think even like 2017 they had a remote op dozer at ConExpo, and I think stuff like that is going to help with the work thing or the workforce thing a little bit maybe because granted there's some hardware limitations, like a simulator is tens of thousands of dollars, but if there's a way that they can lower that where it's like, okay, you're an operator, you vetted yourself in the field, and now say you're proven, your skill set's proven on site, you can take that step back and now you're a remote pilot, and we as a company are gonna give you this hardware similar to a company giving somebody a laptop for $3,500. We're going to give you this 10 grand worth of gear for you to run your machine at the convenience of your internet location. I see that as very realistic in the future, because there are certain things that are going to need the human touch for a long time, but there is some stuff that could be fully autonomous probably within 5 years. I don't think is unrealistic. But then again,
that's with a lot of industries, anything that,
and it's not killing jobs. What it is it's allowing more work to get done. Because when I look at it from the crushing screening aspect, you're still going to need somebody on site, a couple people to monitor the stuff visually, because there's only so much you can get from electronic indicators and gauges and sensors. I mean, the trained eye is still very irrelevant in this stuff. So.
It'd be interesting to see just how it keeps
once
going.
Again, in 5-10 years, you'd be blown away.
We'll just schedule this out for another 5 years.
Yeah, just set it up, same day.
Well, sweet. John, it's been awesome having you on.
Yeah. No, I appreciate it. I think that I gained a lot from the conversation.
Yeah.
Which is good. I think this is mutually beneficial. Hopefully I entertained you a little bit.
Absolutely.
Good.
And one thing, too, just before you leave, I want to ask you, we always have everyone kind of just think back on your current experiences, what you have and the knowledge that you have. And, we have a lot of people in different industries, but, that like business, like entrepreneurship, that like furthering education and things like that. Is there anything in your time that you'd just recommend to just people that are trying to get into business, that are trying to, be an entrepreneur, that are just earlier on than yourself, and just with the experiences that you had kind of growing up, what kind of things have you learned and taken away that you could give advice to?
Yeah, I guess a couple key ideas that have been floating around in my mind lately, and these are ever changing,
Absolutely.
But kind of something I've been reflecting on, a few things I've been reflecting on is nobody actually has it figured out. Even like, so as I've been able to brush shoulders with some of these people who have developed these huge companies, it's like they're still just not winging it, but they deal with the same level of anxiety that a lot of people do when starting a company. It's different. There's different stakes at play, but every day they put their pants on just like you do, and that's not to minimize it, but that's comforting in a sense, because as you continue to level up, you're still going to have challenges. Life never gets easy. You shouldn't wish for an easy life. You should wish to continue to level up to face the challenges before you. That to my point, some of the stuff I deal with on a daily basis now would have just crushed me mentally 5 years ago.
Yeah.
Things like, I don't know, just like a federal inspection from the mine safety officer. That used to my heart used to sink when I got a call, hey, we got an inspector on site. I'd be like, oh, and it's like, why are you tripping out? Because now in the last couple of years, we've pushed to implement safety procedures so we know we're on par, on standard, above standard, or beyond. And, in a roundabout way, I guess, to answer your question, that's, you're constantly evolving. Never stop evolving. Just keep innovating. I think you nodded your head when I said that word a couple times.
Yeah.
Constant innovation. Just because you did it that way doesn't mean you need to keep doing it that way. And nobody's got it figured out. Just every day is new, and
I like that.
Nobody's got it figured out.
All figured out.
No,
yeah. It's just. But again, like there's this element of just perceived. You talk to somebody and this is perceived. Like they gotta just know everything. Mm-hmm. Then you figure out in talking, like, oh man, like you struggle just like we do. Just at a different level and different issues coming up. But yeah, that's great. Well, sweet. Again, it's been awesome having you. Appreciate you coming down. And,
absolutely.
We're excited to. I think this should be a yearly thing.
Yeah, I'd be come down anytime.
Let's
happy if you have me.
Again, thank you to listeners, and we'll try to keep pumping these out and go from there.
Yeah, right on. How do you end these?
It just stops.
Do we high five?